This episode of Overtime Arcade is going to be a little bit different than normal. First up, we're going to head out to the garage and we're going to revisit that classic Taito linear power supply that I've been wrestling with for the past couple of weeks now. I've had a bit of a breakthrough. I think I might have finally figured this thing out, and hopefully in a little bit we'll have a working power supply for my Jungle King restoration project, so really looking forward to that. And then guys, I've got 3 huge announcements that I can't wait to share with you in this episode that's going to completely transform not only this channel, but my collection as well. So the first of those we're going to talk about out in the garage while I'm working on something. So we'll do that first, and then we'll come back down to the basement. I'll share those last 2 big announcements with you, and we'll wrap up the video there. So if that sounds like fun, why don't we get started? Let's go!
Overtime!
All right, here it is, the thing that's been the bane of my existence for the past couple weeks. This, of course, if you've seen the previous episode, this is the classic Taito linear power supply that I've been planning on using in my Jungle King restoration project. Now, most normal people would tell you, don't even mess with these things. They're some of the worst power supplies ever designed. Get rid of it, throw it away, don't use it, don't look at it, just replace it with a modern switching power supply and be done with it. The switchers work great in those classic Taito games like Jungle King, Jungle Hunt, Elevator Action, Zookeeper, Kicks, you name it, that sort of thing. Don't even bother messing with these things, they're terrible. They burn up, they don't last, they blah, 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 right? So, and originally, that's what I was gonna do because I didn't have one of these and I was just gonna throw a switcher into the cabinet and be done with it. But one of the Overtime Arcade channel members, Photoboy, who runs the YouTube channel Random Fun and Games, I'll put a link down below in the video description. You should go and subscribe. He's got some cool arcade stuff. He basically donated this to me, and so I felt obligated to at least give it the old college try. And so that's what we did in the previous episode. You know, we got it, we tested it out, and I kept blowing a fuse. The fuse that, the manual says is designed to protect the power supply against shorts. So I rebuilt it. I replaced the bridge rectifiers, all of the transistors, the voltage regulators, most of the diodes, all the tantalum caps, and yeah, I tested every little thing, and the only thing that I really found, or the 2 things that I found bad were this power transistor, this 2N3055, and this little teeny tiny jelly bean voltage regulator. I think that's Reg 2 right there next to one of the 3 filter caps on this thing. So we did all of that. We replaced all that stuff, and it wasn't working. The issue I was having was you'd power it up and 5 volts would come on for maybe 2 seconds and then die, okay? And drop down to like less than a volt. And the 12 volts never got above like 4.5, right? And there was nothing I could do. I tried cleaning and adjusting the pots. The negative 5 volts and the negative 12 volts were just fine because this board produces all 4 of those voltages. But the game Jungle King only really uses +5 and +12, and I didn't have those. So I was pulling my hair out. I had lots of great comments from all you folks, and lots of great suggestions and comments on the last video, and lots of great discussion in the Overtime Arcade private members-only Discord server. Lots of people offering suggestions. I was trying things out, and just nothing was working, nothing was working. No matter what I did, it was the same exact behavior. 5 would come on briefly and then drop, and then 12 would never rise. And in particular, and I really appreciate all of those helpful suggestions, but in particular, I really want to thank a recently joined Overtime Arcade channel member, John, who goes by Kaworu all over the place on YouTube, on Clav and elsewhere. He really was there with me in the trenches for a couple of days. We were going back and forth. He was suggesting things. We were both looking at the schematics, trying to figure something out. And he actually even bought one of these off of eBay for himself, because you can get them pretty cheaply because nobody wants them. And man, just everything I was trying just wasn't working. We were down to the point where I was pulling components off of the board trying to isolate different parts of the circuit and test those out independently. I was worried about shorts with the TO 220 transistors. There's 4 of them right here on these 2 heat sinks. I actually had removed the mounting screws and kind of lifted them off so that there was no chance that they were shorting, but nothing was working. And finally, John Kaworu suggested, hey, as part of the process of we're trying to, disable parts of the circuit, he said, just for laughs, because, I already replaced these 3 ICs right here. There's 4 of them. I didn't replace the optocoupler, but I replaced this timing IC and these 2 voltage regulators, and I socketed them too. He said, hey, let's pull those VRs, and there's 2 of them that go right here. There's a 723. They're both 723s at U3 and U4. Controlling the 5 volts, positive 5 volts and positive 12 volts. He said, hey, let's just try pulling those one at a time, again, at least to isolate those 5 and 12 volt circuits and see what we get. And so what I did was I started by pulling U3, which is right here, and as soon as I did that, 12 volts was fine. It came up a little bit low. I was able to adjust it with the pots, and we had 12 volts, just perfect, okay? So I put that 723 back into U3 and pulled U4, and U5 and the 5 volts was still bad. So at least at that point we had narrowed it down to the 5 volt circuit was really the problem that we were having, which is what we suspected. And then on a hunch, I took the 723 that had been at U4, which makes it the voltage regulator for the 12 volts, and put that over at U3, which is where it goes for 5 volts. And with that 723 there, powered it up, 5 volts came right up. No problem, adjustable to, to 5.1 or whatever you want to run it at. Humming along, no problem. And I was so elated. And, I guess what happened, is I had a bad 723. One of these, DIP 14 ICs. It's, at least to me, a little bit unusual to have a voltage regulator in this form factor, in an IC form factor, but I guess it happens, right? And yeah, it was that chip. So that leads me to wonder, why was that chip bad? Did I get a dud from the factory, right? I mean, that happens, sure, I guess, right? But it was, probably, I'm sure in the same batch as the other one was for, or was there some other problem on the board that, I didn't fix, or I had caused some problem that I caused, and when we fired it up, it actually blew that chip, right? It ruined that chip somehow, fried it. And the only thing I can think of is there might have been a short, right? So when I was lifting up these TO220 transistors, 2 of which I think these sort of operate like the crowbar circuits, and I think I can't remember, but anyway, I lifted them off of the heatsink, so they're still soldered in, they would still operate, but there was no risk of them shorting to the heatsink. And on one of them, I noticed a solder bridge, and I'll show a little photo of that right here of what that looked like. But yeah, zoomed way in, you can see, solder, when I was soldering this transistor in, it kind of, got through to the other side and caused a bridge between those 2 legs. And here is that offending, if the camera will focus, here is that offending solder bridge right here, almost like it's a tooth from the tooth fairy, right, in this little baggie to remember it forever. Goodness gracious. So maybe that solder bridge caused a short which burned up that voltage regulator chip. I don't know, but it's working now, so what's left for me to do, and I didn't have any more of those 723s on hand, so I went to DigiKey, and DigiKey had them in stock, and what terrified me though is it was marked obsolete, and this was the first week of March 2024, and the listing for that part said it was obsolete, being taken out, and the last opportunity to order it would be the end of March 2024, right? So yeah, so right now is the beginning of March 2024, so I went and, because these things are cheap, they're like $1, so I went and I ordered an entire tube of them. So I've got, I think, 25 of these in case I ever need them, or if anyone else ever needs them, I'll have them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these new 723s, I'm going to pop it into the socket so that we have both 12 volts and 5 volts. The other thing I'm going to do is I ordered new insulation bushings for those transistors, because basically what happened, and let me show you, I actually still have a couple of them. So each of these heat sinks for the 4 TO22 transistors, there's 2 per heat sink, has 2 mounting screws, and each mounting screw is supposed to have 2 of these little bushings here, these like rubber or nylon or something bushings, I guess designed to prevent the screw from making direct contact with the heatsink and potentially shorting something out. And those like crumbled, a bunch of them crumbled when I removed them, so I didn't put them in, and maybe that was causing a problem, I don't know. But on Amazon, I found a bunch really, really cheaply. I got 1,000 of these, and it gave me a bunch of silicon insulating pads that I don't really need. But I got these really cheaply, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to install that new 723 right there, and I'm going to install these bushings into the heatsink. We'll get everything lined up. We'll put the silicon insulating pads on again. But before I do that, let me prove to you that this is working. So I've got my multimeter on DC volts. It's connected to the 5 volt, positive 5 volt output. I've got the whole thing plugged in. So let me turn on the main switch. We'll pull the first interlock and then the second interlock. And look at that. Call it 5.05. We've got our, the 2 lights, the 2 LED lights are lit here for the -5 and -12. And look at that, nice, bright, steady, red LED is lit for the positive 5 volts, and you'll have to believe me for now, but if I pulled that 723 out of that socket at U3 and put it at U4, the 12 volts would be working too. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'll put a new 723 in at that socket, and I'll put those 8 new bushings into the 2 heat sinks, and then we'll come back and we'll see that we've got both 5 volts and 12 volts at the same time. So let me go and do that real quick. Okay, here we go, moment of truth. I installed a new 723 voltage regulator IC in the correct orientation, yep, into the socket I previously installed at U4. So this is the 12 volt regulator. Got the same one in U5 for the 5 volt regulator. This is the one that was previously in U4 before I sort of discovered this issue. And as you can see, the 4 TO22 transistors are mounted back down onto the heat sinks with their sill pads for insulation and with these bushings in there. So I think everything should be good to go. I'm a little bit nervous because I don't know 100% if it will work, and if there's a shorting issue again with the transistors mounted onto the heat sinks. So here we go. Cross your fingers. Multimeter is set to DC volts. We're attached to the 5 volt output line. All I need to do is pull this interlock switch, and 3, 2, 1. I think we're good. Do we see 3 lights or 4 lights? There should be 4 lights, right? Is it Gul Madred from Star Trek that had? Yeah, the 12 isn't necessarily the brightest thing in the world. Maybe we need to adjust that a little bit. But that 5 volts is holding steady. So let's move over to our 12 volt, which should be right here. And do I need to adjust the voltage? What the heck? It was, guys, I swear it was working before. I swear on my life. When those chips were inserted differently, when I had this one over here, it was working. Let me try that real quick. Hang on, I'm gonna turn this off. I'm gonna swap these chips around. I'll be right back. All right, see? I'm not crazy and I wasn't lying to you. We've got 12 volts here. What I did was I pulled the LM or the 723 that I had just inserted into U4, which is the voltage regulator for the 12 volt line. I pulled that out. I took the one that had been in Q3, put it into Q4, and now we've got 12 volts again. So I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to put this IC into that socket. And again, this is one of the brand new ones I just got from DigiKey. So I'm going to give it a second because it takes a good long while for this voltage to bleed off, and I don't want to be inserting voltage regulators with voltage in the system. The filter caps are probably holding that charge. So either I got another dud from the factory, from DigiKey, which is possible, or there is some weird thing here that's tying these two circuits together, some kind of feedback that even with the 5 volts working now, the 12 volts is getting pulled down somehow. This thing is driving me nuts! Okay, what was I even saying? So, yeah, something's going on. I'm not sure. I'm going to let this bleed completely off, and then we'll plug that IC in and then see what happens at that point. Okay, we're down under 1/10 of a volt. It took a couple minutes for that to bleed off. So I feel relatively safe doing this. Putting this 723 chip back into the socket at U3. So we'll get this all lined up. Make sure we don't bend any legs. All right. And let me just look with a flashlight, just so it doesn't look like any of these legs are bent. And I don't see any. So here we go. We're still hooked up to 12. It should stay at 12 unless there's something weird going on, that these lines are tied together and pulling down the 12. 3, 2, 1. So that, oh, look at that. The 5 volt dropped. The 5 volt light was on for a second and it died. Look at that. Okay. Maybe it's another dud chip. I'm going to let this all bleed off, and we'll put another new chip in to U3, and maybe we're just getting some bad chips. These are TI chips, Texas Instrument chips. I don't know what's going on. All right, pulled that chip out. Got a new one, another new one fresh from the tube. Let's get this lined up. And so this chip has not been used at all yet. Oh my goodness. A normal, sane person, do I need to bend these legs a little bit? I think so. A normal, sane person would have given up long ago, but you all know that's not me. So, can't let any of you down. Going nuts. I'm going nuts. I'm going nuts. All right, let's see. All right, take a look. You can never quite tell if legs are bent. This side doesn't look like it's in all the way, but anyway, let's try it. Here we go. We're on 12. Let's put it on 5. 3, 2, 1. No. Is it that they're tied together? Is that what's going on? Let me keep at this. Let me try a couple more chips. And maybe these are all just bad. I'll come back in a second. Guess what? I think it's working. I've got 4 nice, bright LED lights. We've got a little bit over 5 volts on the 5 volt line, and on the 12 volt line, we got 12.1. Holy smokes! Guys, I am I'm losing my mind. So you can see these 3 chips sort of sitting upside down. I was burning through them. I was just going boom, 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 testing them. It's not working. You know, like I had one really good chip, right? One of the chips that I had gotten previously for the rebuild, I could move, you know, with the sort of quote unquote bad ones out, I could move that chip back and forth and get 5 or 12. But then putting one of the new chips into the other side, I wouldn't get it. I could only have 5 or 12, not both at the same time. And I kept going through chip after chip after chip. I had been using it in the 12-volt line, right? And it wasn't working, right? And the thing that really did it for me, and I'm not sure, I'm afraid to touch it almost, is, you know, I was really waiting for the voltage to bleed all the way down before pulling the one I had just tested out and putting a new one in. You know, like I said, I kept, you know, this is the 4th one. And, you know, and I would also test these chips in the 5-volt side, right? And it wasn't working in the 5-volt side. I'm not sure if I showed you that. So I had, this is the good chip, and with only one voltage regulator installed in these sockets, I could move that back and forth and get either 5 or 12, right? But with any of these other chips in, it would not give me the correct voltage on that one, right? And taking that good chip out and putting it aside for safekeeping, I could put one of the new chips into either U3 or U4, and I would not get the right voltage. And I'm just going nuts. I'm like, are these all bad, right? I mean, I haven't tested all 25. So on the 4th one, you know, I had put a 4th one in, and it wasn't giving me the right voltage, and I was getting impatient rather than waiting a couple of minutes each time for this to bleed off, you know, down to, you know, I was looking at, you know, less than 1/10 of a volt. I just went anyway and, you know, used my chip puller to pull it out. And I noticed that as I was slowly bringing the chip out of the socket, with it off, with the interlock switch off, it jumped up to like 10 volts. And I'm like, what the heck is going on, right? And so, you know, I pushed it, and I don't know what it is. The chip is seated all the way in the socket right now, and I got 12 volts. So I'm gonna put these back into the tube. Maybe I'll make a note to myself somehow, perhaps, that, you know, that they're potentially bad. I don't know, but I'm gonna leave well enough alone. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 nice bright LEDs burning. So yeah, I'm gonna put this back on 5, and we're gonna call this, at least for now, done. We're gonna call this a working, rebuilt, classic Taito linear power supply intended for use in the Jungle King restoration. We got the 3 lights from the, again, that's on the bezel, sort of is a backlight for the instructions printed on the glass bezel, lights them up in a dark arcade. So yeah, you can see it's a little dancing a little bit, but I think that's pretty good, and we can adjust the voltage, and we can adjust the current. Way over-engineered power supply. So with that out of the way, I've got 3 announcements to share with you. The first of which involves a task, and it actually involves this game over here, everyone's favorite, Sly Spy. I can't even show it to you all the way. Sly Spy. So you've seen this on the channel. This is a game I actually got for free, and it was working. Needed a little bit of TLC, but let me raise the legs on the tripod all the way. I gotta get a new tripod. This thing is kind of on its last leg, no pun intended. All right, there we go. So yeah, Sly Spy. We're gonna do a couple things here. I've got a new marquee we're going to install, and I've actually got a replacement bezel because this one, you know, is kind of torn up. So we're gonna leave this power supply running, you know, just to kind of burn it in a little bit. There we go. So the reason I'm eager to put this new marquee in and do it right now is my first announcement is, guys, I think I'm going to be putting some games on location, at least temporarily. So So I've got two, I guess, buddies of mine. One guy that I'm quite close with, and one is really like a father of one of my son's teammates on sports teams. They both have public locations. So one is I've only briefly talked to him about it. He just opened up a pinball arcade near me. He's starting to put some video games on the floor too, some arcade video games. So I might maybe put some on the floor there. And he wants to be able to sell all of the games. So maybe if I decide to sell any of my games, I can put them there and he can, you know, I don't know, on consignment or something and sell them for me. The other place is my buddy Mark, who's also a channel member. He owns, you've heard me talk about this a bunch of times, Back to the Media. It's a record store and used game store, and they got all kinds of cool stuff there in Winchester, Virginia. He's building an arcade in the back room. I've been helping him repair some of his games. Look at that. So here's this marquee. You saw this before. It's all burnt up, and I tried to clean it up and burned right through. So that is, as they say, that. So, but yeah, Mark, we've been talking. He really wants to open up the arcade in April. He doesn't quite have enough games ready. So I think what I might do is temporarily put some of my games into Mark's public arcade. You know, I'm not really going to put any of the super nice ones that I have in the basement, but I've got a handful of working games out here in the garage that I'd be happy to put temporarily in Mark's arcade, including the Sly Spy, including the Superman, maybe the Neo Geo. I don't know. We'll see. But there's a couple things I want to do to this Sly Spy before we get it up and running. And one of the things is replace the marquee. So let's come back over here and try not to damage anything. Oh, here we go. And we're still I've been watching it. It's been dancing between 5.039 and 5.04, which is fine. And then here is our new marquee. So this is one that I had made by XL Arcade, who's done a couple of cool things for me in the past. They did, in particular, they did the Superman CPO for my Dynamo HS7, which, you know, nobody had done before. So with Sly Spy, I wanted to get him to do one for me. He didn't have it, you know, on his website, but found a scan. He got it all cleaned up, and I think it looks pretty nice. But this is a Translite. It's not mounted. It's not a Plexi mounted marquee like the original was. And what this is really a piece of Plexi, and then there is, I don't know if this is laminated on or what, but the artwork is kind of, I don't think it's printed on the Plexi. It's probably printed and then applied. But what we have here is just a Translite, right? So it's a flexible printed piece. And so there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can mount it on Plexi. What people often do is they just tape it on. I don't really want to do that. And what's nice is this is a relatively thick marquee. So we know we've got some depth to work with. So what I'm going to do is I've got a piece of Plexiglass. This is technically Duraplex is the name brand. Plascolite is the line. This is extra strength acrylic sheet. It's plexiglass, right? I'm going to cut this to size. This is relatively thin. This is, what is it? 2 millimeter, which is 0.08 inches thick. I'm going to cut 2 sheets of this to size, and then we'll sandwich the marquee Translite in between, and that should be good to go. And we won't have to tape it, won't have to do anything like that. And we should be great. So I don't think I've done this before. I'm not sure I've ever shown it on camera. Cutting plexiglass, right? Cutting plastic. There's a technique to it, right? So what you want to do is get or I guess Duraplex is the line and Plascolite is the brand, because this says Plascolite on it. So this is my plexiglass cutter. It's basically just a really sharp knife, and you want to be careful, sort of in this kind of strange shape. So I've got it measured, the dimensions that I need. I'm going to have to make a couple of cuts. So I've got a single sheet here. This will be enough for the 2 pieces that I need to sandwich it. I need to make 2 long cuts to get the sort of height that I need, and then I need to trim just a little bit of the length off and then we'll be good to go. And don't worry, this is completely transparent plexiglass. It has like a masking, makes it look a little bit cloudy on both sides. So the way I do this, I've got the piece clamped down to the table, right? So I've got a piece of wood and then my trusty Irwin quick grip clamps holding it to the table. And I've got my, I don't know what you would call this, bar clamp. So it's this is from Harbor Freight, Pittsburgh, 50-inch clamp and cut edge. So basically, this is one long straight edge, and it's got a clamp so it'll grab on to the table. This is not a perfectly flat table, so if I didn't have these clamps on, this is not strong enough to kind of hold the plexiglass in place. But I've got it measured, and it's perfectly lined up to this edge of the bar clamp. And basically what you do is you get your knife in there. Listen to that sound. All right, we're going to drag this back and forth a bunch. And every single time you can see there's a tiny bit of material that's being taken off, right? Looks a little bit like snow. We're just going to go back and forth. We're always dragging. We're always dragging with this sort of tooth, right? Go back. And we can go in the other direction too. And I'm kind of trying not to get in the way of the camera, right? So we're going to do that a whole bunch of times, essentially like halfway through the material, I think. Yeah, it says repeat scoring until halfway through the material. And then essentially we hang it off the edge of the table and snap it. So let me keep scoring this a whole bunch until we're about halfway through. And then I'll show you how I snap it at the end. All right, I've finished cutting, or finished the first cut, a little bit more than halfway through. And then all we need to do, keep our fingers crossed, is take this to the edge of the table and really just snap it off. Here we go, 1, 2, 3. All right, nice clean cut. And what's holding it together is actually the masking sort of plastic. So I'm gonna go make my other 3 cuts. So I need to make another cut about here to get these to be the same height. And then I need to take, I don't know, like 3/8 of an inch off or something like that, the edge. So let me do that, and then we'll have our 2 pieces of plexi ready to go to mount this new Marquee Translite. And here we are, still holding relatively steady at about 5.04. That's dancing around a little bit, but pretty stable, I would say. And yeah, I've had to turn my multimeter back on a couple times because it does time out if you leave it on, but I'm feeling pretty good about that. And then over here, we've got our 2 pieces of plexi cut and ready to go. So let's come over here, back to the cabinet, back to our Sly Spy. We'll get you mounted, get the camera mounted on the tripod here. And just before we slap this thing on, I want to change up the lighting just a little bit because originally this is the original light fixture. It's like a double-ended medium base socket sort of thing, and the original incandescent bulbs. That's what burnt up the inks in this original Marquee and really destroyed it. And I've had some just some LED bulbs here that'll be a lot less hot and a lot cooler, so not to burn it up. But I saw something in the store today, or actually my son did. I was looking for some more of those bulbs, and I was looking for like cool white, because typically cool white is what you would find in like the fluorescent bulbs inside of Marquees, and I couldn't find LED bulbs like this in cool white. And then my son saw this, and so this has a little integrated light switch, so customized color of light with integrated switch. And it's not the color like red, green, blue type of color. It's like the temperature of the white. This is only a white bulb, but it's got this little switch here, so you can go from soft, bright to true to cool and daylight. And cool white is what we're going to want here. So let me go ahead and remove these bulbs, and I can reuse them for something else. We'll unscrew these. And we'll pop these in. And I got these at Home Depot. I don't know if this Is EcoSmart a Home Depot brand? I'm not sure. I'll figure it out and put a link down in the video description. Oh, and you know, I got to make sure the switch is accessible. Okay, that's good. Okay, hopefully it'll line up on this side too. All right, I think that's probably fine. I can still reach the switch, even though it's not perfectly on the outside. So anyway, let me plug in the cabinet and there we go. And fire it up. Whoa, look at that. That is some, that is bright. Man, I can't even look at it. That is bright and that is very soft. So I guess that first setting is the soft white 2700K. I don't know what the K stands for. But let's try the different settings. That's the whitest. Oops. So maybe go all the way up and then back one. All right. I think those look both the same. So, oh, we got the screen looks like it's scrolling. Let me fix that real quick. Yeah, that's just a setting in the camera. So let's get this mounted up. I'm gonna peel plastic off. Oh, isn't that satisfying? All right, and here's our new Translite Marquee, sandwiched in between 2 layers of plexi. There's a little sliver hanging off the bottom there. So you could probably tape them together if you wanted to, but I don't think that's necessary. This might be just a tiny bit thick. I can always adjust the lower bracket to help us fit in there. How's that look? It's I think it's getting just washed out a little bit. Let me switch to the auto setting real quick. There we go. It's kind of a balance between the what's best for the monitor versus what's best for the marquee, and that's kind of what makes doing tours of arcade bars a little tricky, or tours of any arcade, because you're constantly kind of dealing with, you know, do you want the monitor to look good, or do you want the marquees to look good? So we'll just put that one in for now. How does that look? I'd say a million times better. So huge, huge, huge thank you to XL Arcade for doing what's essentially a custom print job for me. You know, similar to what they did with the Taito Superman. I'm just sweeping up all the sort of bits of plexi that I had to cut. I'd say that looks real nice. Let's step back. It looks even better. It looks even better in person. Yeah, look at that. Nice and close up where it'll adjust to it. Really, really happy with how that turned out. So thank you, thank you, thank you to XL Arcade. I'm sure they'll add it to their website as an option for you to just purchase one if you're interested. And yeah, that little technique with you know, sandwich it between 2 layers of plexi, I think came out great. So the next thing I want to do is take this off and replace the bezel. So I guess we can do that while the monitors, or while the game is on. Let me reach in and disconnect. Or maybe I should let you see what I'm doing here. I'm gonna reach in and unlatch the control panel. All right. That's one. And there's the other latch. All right. There's probably a couple things I need to do here. I need to figure out, is there a free play? Hopefully there's a free play setting, because this is going to be a free play arcade. We'll take off this plastic bezel, and you can see the cardboard one. The old cardboard one wants to come right off, so let's just rip it, tear it off real quick. Oh, that's so sad. That's so sad. Oh, no. But I do have a new one, so, all right. Well, oh, isn't that unfortunate? Right in the trash with that. I don't think I want to keep that for any purpose. Let me actually get this this plexi cleaned off real quick. It's got all this dust on it, and I'm going to try to get as much of this old bezel off as possible. So let me go do that real quick. Okay, I finished cleaning the plastic bezel. I used some Simple Green and Novus 1 and a brand new plastic scraper to get some of that gunk off. And came out okay. And yeah, our power supply is still going strong. All 4 lights are lit, and we've come down maybe a hundredth of a volt. So I'm not worried about that. That's pretty good. It's been on for maybe close to an hour. And here is our replacement cardboard bezel for Sly Spy. I actually got this from Quarter Arcade, so this is not a reproduction. This is an original Sly Spy bezel. It's used, it's got a little bit of wear in the corners, but it's fully intact. None of the artwork is torn up or anything, and that looks really, really great. So let's get it mounted on the cabinet right over here. And we'll get the camera on the tripod for that. All right, so there's kind of a couple layers to this. So obviously we've got the monitor screen. We've got like a blackout bezel, which has been stained a little bit, but you probably won't see that. Then we have this MDF or particle board bezel, and the artwork goes right on that actually. So I'm gonna delicately bring it over, and we'll slide it on like so. Okay, and that kind of tucks in behind up there. All right, not bad. And then we'll take our plexiglass bezel. This comes right over the top. Come on. There we go. Slide it in there. And yeah, voila. Look at that. That looks a million times better. It's dim down here, but let me grab a flashlight real quick. And look at that. Look how much better that looks with the new artwork. So let's close the latches here. There we go. So like I said, a little bit left to do to really make this ready for a location. I got to get new locks. One thing I need to do is I showed in the previous video, when I cleaned the control panel and everything, I got the little labels off of these button sort of surrounds, so I've got to get like a clear label maker to print up some new labels for that. But cosmetically, I think we're in really good shape, so awesome. So I got a couple more announcements left in this video. So why don't we head back downstairs to the basement. I'll share those announcements and we'll wrap up the video there. Well, there you go. I'm really happy we got that classic Taito linear power supply working, and I'm really hoping that that works out for the Jungle King. So what a huge, huge relief that was, and a bit of a close call there, close run thing for a little bit. And yeah, really, really excited about potentially putting some games on location at Mark's Arcade, coming, back to the media, coming soon in Winchester, Virginia. And yeah, a little bit nervous, a little bit scary, but mostly excited. That should be a lot of fun to be able to share, my games with the public. So that's really cool. And so for the last 2 big announcements that I wanted to share in this episode, the first one is one that I actually tried to share before. So if you remember the last episode of the Coin Jam podcast that we did, I kind of teased a big announcement. And maybe I was being a little too cute with it. And if you missed the last couple of frames of video before we cut away, you might have missed the announcement. Basically what I did was I opened up my my hoodie, and it showed that I was wearing this t-shirt because Yeah, starting with our next episode, Chance from the Canadian Arcade, which hopefully you're a subscriber of on YouTube. Chance from the Canadian Arcade is going to be joining the Coin Jam podcast as a permanent co-host, and I cannot be more excited about that. Chance has been a guest on the podcast a couple of times and has completely knocked it out of the park, and I know he's excited too, so the whole crew, we're really looking forward to this. Right now, we're working on the scheduling. I think it's going to be Friday, March 28th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Time. I don't know, daylight savings or whatever. 9 p.m. Eastern Time, which is a little bit later than we've done it in the past. But now we've got Liam and I are on Eastern Time, and we've got Kay in Texas on Central Time. And Chance is in Calgary, Alberta in Canada. That's Mountain Time. So we're going to move it to 9 p.m. So this should be a little bit better for everybody. So yeah, that's our second big announcement. Chance from the Canadian Arcade is going to be joining the Coin Jam podcast as a full-time co-host, starting with our next episode coming in just a couple of weeks now. And yeah, so for my last announcement for this episode, we are so close to 3,000 subscribers, and once we hit that 3,000 mark, I'm going to do another live stream to celebrate that and to thank everyone for all of that. I've got a couple of different things planned for that, and one of them is a bit of a giveaway. So giveaways on YouTube are really complicated. YouTube's got all these rules, but there's actually something they've done recently to kind of change that a little bit. So keep an eye out for the podcast being scheduled. You don't want to miss that. The next episode of the Coin Jam podcast featuring Chance from the Canadian Arcade. And also keep an eye out for that 3,000 subscribers thank you live stream. I think that'll probably hit sometime in April, so keep an eye out for that. So really, really excited about that. And maybe a couple of more, bonus announcements. So thinking about what the next couple of episodes are going to be like. So it's actually, I am just behind. I was waiting on those parts to come in for the power supply. I'm recording this now. It's super early Sunday morning. I should have had this video out yesterday for early access for Overtime Arcade channel members. So anyway, I'm a little bit behind, but I got some really cool stuff coming up. So the next episode, I think, is going to be a multiple pickup. So I think we're picking up 4 or 5 different games in that episode, which is going to be absolutely wild. So you're not going to want to miss that. And then the episode after that's technically also going to be a pickup. This one is actually, we're going to pick it up. It's a working game. We're going to do a little bit of a light restoration, fix all the artwork, all that stuff, get it all running, hopefully in a single episode, because that machine is also intended for Mark's Arcade at Back to the Media. So that should be a lot of fun. And then for the last episode, if I've got the count right, the last episode in March, I've got something really kind of cool planned. I don't know if it's going to work out all that well. Think of it as maybe a special guest appearance by somebody that most of you probably know and love quite a bit. So anyway, more about that coming soon. Yeah, so and one last extra bonus. I just checked, and there's a sale going on in our merchandise shop right now, the Overtime Arcade merch shop. 20% off of everything. It's the best deal that they do all year. It's run by Spreadshop. I don't really get to control the sales, but if you've been waiting to get an Overtime Arcade t-shirt or a hat or mug or anything, we've got hoodies. We've got all kinds of cool stuff. Check the link down below. Check out that merch shop, and if you're interested, buy something. You'll get 20% off, so that should be cool. And yeah, I want to thank all of our Overtime Arcade channel members, in particular Photoboy, who runs the Random Fun and Games channel on YouTube, for donating the power supply to me, and also Kaworu for helping me out with a ton of troubleshooting and tons of pointers or recommendations that helped me get this thing working. I wouldn't have been able to do it without both of you guys, so thank you so much for that. I also want to thank our newest channel members. Actually, Mark from Back to the Media, I finally convinced him to join. I've been working on that for months now, so thank you for joining, Mark. Sorry for badgering you. Hope you're having a lot of fun enjoying the channel members only Discord, our private Discord, which is really a blast. And also, huge news, huge name, Sean from Classic Arcade Repairs just joined the channel as a channel member. I've been a huge fan of Sean for years. I love watching his stuff, fixing monitors and game PCB stuff that's, if you think what I do is technical, Sean is that much more. He does really, really advanced stuff that I'm always impressed by. So thank you so much for becoming a channel member. If you're interested in becoming a channel member too, click on that join button down below. You'll learn all about it, all the perks that you get, all the cool stuff involved. It's only $1.99 a month and a great way to support the channel. So yeah, that's basically it. I think we'll wrap it up here. This has been another episode of Overtime Arcade. I'm Charlie. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Overtime!